Oklahoma Gardening is a production of the Oklahoma Cooperative Extension Service as part of the land grant mission of the Division of Agricultural Sciences and Natural Resources at Oklahoma State University, dedicated to improving the quality of life of the citizens of Oklahoma through research-based information. Underwriting assistance for our program is provided by the Oklahoma Department of Agriculture, Food, and Forestry, helping to keep Oklahoma green and growing. Welcome back to Oklahoma Gardening. We've got a very special program today as we head to Stilwell, Oklahoma. We will learn more about the past and the present as we visit with two farmers who are still growing some of those delicious red fruits. We come back here to the gardens to learn from Shelley Mitchell about what makes a strawberry. And finally, Jessica Riggin puts a new twist on how to use those delicious strawberries in the kitchen. Like an ombre of sunset colors. It's not the flowers, right? We are south of Stilwell here at Miller Farms, and joining me is Bryce Miller. Bryce, thank you so much for having us here.
You're very welcome.
You got a few strawberries.
We got a few.
Tell us how many acres of strawberries you have here.
Currently, we got 7.5 acres.
Okay. So are you growing one type, everbearing, June-bearing? Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, we currently grow 4 different types.
Okay.
One is an everbearing. The rest are June bearings.
Okay.
So we grow our June bearings are Ruby Junes, Fonterres, and a new one out called Sensation. Our everbearings is a Albion.
Okay. And I notice you're growing in plasticulture. Have you been doing that for the length of this farm, or is this a newer thing?
No, we've been doing it for the majority of it.
Okay.
The first year that we grew was in just traditional matted rows. After that, we went to plastic because we get more plants. It's cleaner. It's still labor intensive, but it's not as labor intensive.
And I know you've got rolling hills over here. It's just
Yes.
beautiful over on this side of Oklahoma, and plenty of water, more so than the rest of the state.
Plenty of water, yeah.
So that helps with drainage as well, right?
It does. And the plastic keeps the water from really getting too much in there. So we have drip line that runs underneath the plastic, and that's how we irrigate, fertilize, and all that. So we control how much water we get, and that's another reason why we went to plastic, is because we don't always get rain. And so, and it also keeps the weed control down quite a bit, more than, matted rows.
So you just had the Strawberry Festival, so I know you're in prime picking season. How long will you be picking?
Normally, we pick somewhere between 6 to 8 weeks. The traditional style is a lot sooner than that. Usually 3 to 4 weeks, sometimes 5 is the max. Currently, we are 3 weeks behind, but as you can see, there's still a lot of blooms on the plants. So we're looking to be picking for, 2nd to 3rd week of June.
Okay. And then what happens after that? I know a lot of times strawberries put on the runners. Do you save those?
We don't save the runners.
Okay.
What we will do is this year we're going to try something new. We're going to turn the cows in on the patch and let them graze it down, so we don't have a big foliage mat on top to pull the plastic up.
Okay.
Because we pull the plastic up every year, we replant every year, and so we're still trying to figure this part out on how to get the plastic up the easiest.
Right. Which is a common problem.
No, it is because it's new to everybody.
Right.
Mainly new to everybody, especially me, being 5 or 6 years in, we're still learning.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think it's interesting how you're looking at even grazing your cattle on it.
Yes.
That's a kind of innovative way of maybe solving some of that problem.
Some of it, yes. And, trying to keep as much chemical out of the ground as we can.
Yeah. So using new runners every year, do you find that that's more beneficial for your production versus trying to use some of the other
No,
runners, or?
it's because once we get these plants, they are 3 or 4 third or fourth year generation.
Mm-hmm.
And the further you go down the line, the more susceptible to disease that they are. The tolerance is not there the further they get away from the mother plant. And
Right.
so that is one reason why we do not take our own runners, which you can, but we don't.
Okay. Well, I know you've been growing strawberries for a few years, but you've gotten all in with the association and the festival. Tell me a little bit about that aspect of it.
Well, I'm currently the Strawberry Growers Association president. Have been for the past 3 years. It's the group of it's the group of farmers that we have here in Adair County. We all get together and we try to help one another out and discuss on how to be successful as a farmer, and we're trying to keep this tradition alive. There's not very many of us that's growing strawberries anymore. 1950 something, there was 126 entries, over 600 acres grown in Stilwell, and now there's 20.
Okay.
With 7 growers.
Okay. Well, and I hear you did well at the festival. You won first place
Yes,
with your strawberries?
we got lucky and got first. We will take it how we can get it.
Yeah. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
And I know that's a big event for the state. Everybody knows Stilwell
Big.
for the strawberries. And so this is where they come from.
Yes,
and
ma'am.
It's exciting to see this. Do you mind if I help you pick a little bit as
sure,
we go through here? There's several red ones.
Several. And so normally this is not the ideal shape, but this is the ideal color.
Okay.
And so that one is ready, and you can see how the firmness, and that one's ready.
Okay.
Obviously the green ones are not ready.
And all of this is hand-picked, correct?
Hand-picked, every one of them.
So very labor involved.
Very labor intensive. I've got a crew that comes in and picks for me right now it'll be every other day until it heats up. Then it'll be every day. Okay. My boys, they help pick. This is a family-run farm, and it takes all 5 of us to keep it running.
Well, Bryce, it's clearly a labor of love, and thank you for sharing your farm with us
today. You're very welcome. We're glad to have you out here.
Thanks. You've probably seen those delicious red strawberries showing up at farmers markets. And when we're talking strawberries, there's no better place to be than in Stilwell, Oklahoma. Joining me today is Bobby Doyle, who has been farming strawberries just outside of Stilwell for quite some time. But Bobby, tell me a little bit about the history of strawberry production here outside of Stilwell.
The strawberry production really started in 1947. The first strawberry festival was held in 1947. There was lots of production and sold to Stilwell Cannon Company, who packed lots of strawberries in 50-pound containers. The fresh market strawberry production was started mostly in mid-50s. I started growing strawberries in 1957, and I've been growing them ever since.
So you've learned a lot over those years. Tell me a little bit about your process of growing strawberries.
I established my strawberries in what we call a matted row production, and I grew strawberries that way until 2002. In 2002, I started transferring over to Plasticulture. These berries are established and destroyed every year. They are set in September, and what we try to accomplish in between September and November is we try to establish a plant and get 7 crowns on that plant. And each crown will produce probably from 2 to 5 berry pods, which will have from 2 to 7 berries. So each one of those berry plants in the run of a season will produce a quart of berries.
Wow. Well, you definitely have learned what you're doing here. It seems like there's beautiful berries all over. Tell me a little bit about, now that you're into picking season, how often do you have to pick?
It really depends on the temperature and the amount of sunshine. If we get 70, 75 degree temperature and sunshine, these berries will ripen and be ready to pick every 3rd day. There's 8/10 of an acre in this patch right here. It will produce probably close to 500 flats, 8-quart flats of berries in a picking season.
How was this winter on the strawberries? Did you see any damage from them?
The winter is protected by this cloth that you see laying out here. That cloth is spread over these plants and weighted down with this chert rock, and they're kept protected down to 18 degrees. Other than that, you're not going to get as much production because you're going to lose some of them berry pods.
Mm-hmm. And how is the harvest going for you this season?
Great. Labor problem is the biggest problem that we have today. The market is booming.
So obviously strawberries have been grown here in Stilwell for a long time. What makes this area so ripe for strawberry production?
Most of it is chert rock, and that chert breaks down easily, and the mineral from that chert rock is taken up by these berries and gives them a unique flavor that can't be found anywhere else in the United States. Round Mountain, Mexico, Bald Knob, Arkansas, Florida, California, all of those berries that are shipped in here can't match the flavor. And therefore, Stilwell berry is in high demand.
Well, I'd have to agree with you. They are definitely the sweetest and juiciest strawberries that I've had. Thank you so much, Bobby, for sharing your strawberries with us and the history about the strawberry production here in Adair County.
Today we're going to take a deeper look into what's inside a cell. Specifically, what we're interested in is the DNA, which, just like humans, plants and animals have DNA, and that's like their instruction book on how to make body parts and how to grow and how to reproduce. We want to actually see the DNA. Humans have 2 copies of every gene. Strawberries have 8, so there's a lot more DNA in their cells. So we're going to take one and we're going to get to the DNA. So the first thing you got to do is you got to destroy the cell wall so that you can get to the DNA, because the DNA has several layers of protection around it. So we're going to mash this up, break up the cell wall. All right, we're going to add a little bit of water just to make it easier, because we're going to mix some stuff. Okay, so right now we have exposed the inside of the cell underneath the cell wall. You take this off, you've got the rest of the cell, which has a lot of parts. And the next part we have to break through is the plasma membrane, which is basically made of an oily substance. So what breaks down oily substances? Soap. And now what we're breaking down is the plasma membrane. So we're going to mix that up. Okay, so now we have gone through the cell wall, we are through the cell membrane, and now what we need to do is, since we have gone through the plasma membrane, we've also gone through the nuclear membrane And that is where the DNA stays, because the DNA has to be protected. If we don't work fast, this DNA is going to get chopped up and we won't be able to see it. So we're going to chop up the protein. DNA is nucleic acid wrapped around protein. So when you see a chromosome, what that is, and usually you see them represented by a little X, what this is actually the DNA wrapped around a protein. So what we're going to do is we're going to destroy this protein so that we can get the DNA by itself. So that's what we're using meat tenderizer for. We're going to destroy the protein. So now in here we have loose DNA. We want to separate out all the chunks and get to the DNA. So we're going to add some salt. DNA does not dissolve in salt water, but all this other stuff does. So what we're doing is making it so that the DNA will stay out of solution and will be loose so we can strain it and see it. So what we're going to do, we are going to strain the DNA. Okay, so now we're down to strawberry juice with loose DNA in it, and we're going to separate the DNA out from this. So I'm going to pour it into a clear cup so that it'll be easier to visualize. All right, now, DNA is not soluble in salt water, so it's floating around in chunks that we could see if we had really tiny eyes, all right? Everything else you put in there, soap, meat tenderizer, it is soluble in salt water. So we want to put something else on there so that the DNA will get away from the water and we can see it by itself. So we're going to use really cold rubbing alcohol. Alcohol and water will mix, and you don't want that to happen. So we're going to go slowly so that we can have a separate layer of just alcohol, and that will be where the DNA shows up. So I'm going to slowly pour it at an angle. There's a layer of alcohol, and then there's all the strawberry stuff, but you can see this pink looking goo, and that is the DNA of the strawberry. Now after a few minutes, when a little bit more of it shows up, we can scoop it out and actually see the glob of DNA. So now what we have, this is the actual lots and lots of DNA out of that one strawberry. Now it's hard to think that this all fits in strawberry, but your cells have lots and lots and lots of feet of DNA in each one, and that's why it curls up into those chromosomes, so it doesn't take up that much space. But when you take it out and look at it, there's a lot to it. And this is what makes a strawberry a strawberry.
Today I'm going to be showing you how to make a balsamic strawberry flatbread, and this comes together in about 20 minutes. It's really easy. It's a lightened up version of a flatbread where we're using strawberries in place of tomato. So we're going to start with our strawberries here. I'm just going to take the tops off, and then I'm going to slice them. You need about 1.5 cups of sliced strawberries. And once you've got your strawberry sliced, you can kind of set them out of the way, and we'll come back to those later. And we can start on our dough for the flatbread. This is less like a pizza dough and more like a biscuit dough. And we're going to start with 1.25 cups of flour. And to my flour, I'm going to add 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder. I'm also going to add 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda. And I'm also going to add 1/2 teaspoon of salt. So we'll go ahead and put that in there. And we're going to give this a quick stir. And to this, we're going to add 1 cup of Greek yogurt. Now this dough is kind of like a biscuit dough. It is going to be a very dry, shaggy kind of dough. It's not going to come together like a bread dough. You're going to have to really press it to make it stick together. But because this Greek yogurt is really the only fat that we're adding to the dough, this is a pretty light dish. And once it's kind of starting to come together, we're going to flour the surface of our countertop here. I'm going to turn the dough out onto it. It's still very crumbly. You definitely want to take your rings off for this part, so you don't want to have all of this flour and Greek yogurt in your setting of your ring. Just going to kind of press it together and turn it until it all comes together into one ball. And this can take a while. And so if you used the smaller yogurt cup, this is where you're really going to see that you don't have quite enough, and you might add some water here. Just a very little bit at a time, because adding water to pastry can make it tough. So you don't want to add too much. Now, I'm going to put my ball of dough on a cookie sheet that I have lined with parchment paper. Got a little bit more here on my spoon. And just use your fingers and press this out. We want it to be about 1/4 to a 1/2 inch thick in a rectangular shape. And it's easy to get it to the correct thickness on the outside, and it'll still be a little too thick in the middle. So make sure that you're really working from the middle towards the outside so that it is all the same thickness all the way across. Now my dough's sticking to my fingers just a little bit, so I'm just going to get a little more flour on my hands. And just keep going. At this point, we're going to add a layer of mozzarella cheese, about 1/2 cup, just right on top of your dough here. Leave a little bit of a border around the edges so that you have something to hold on to when you're eating it, because this is a finger food. Now I'm going to add just a little bit of black pepper to the top of the cheese. And we'll start adding our strawberries. Just kind of spread them out evenly across the top of your flatbread. They don't have to all go the same direction. It doesn't really matter, just however it looks good to you. And if, like me, you've ended up slicing too many, just eat them. I think that's enough. And now to this, I'm going to add our final ingredient before baking. It's about 1/2 cup of feta cheese. I'm just going to sprinkle it across the top. Feta cheese really makes this dish pop, but you could also use blue cheese here. I think that would be really delicious, the combination of the salty blue cheese with the strawberries and the balsamic vinegar that we're going to put on at the end. So now I've got my flatbread ready to go in the oven, and I've got my oven preheated to 425 degrees, and it's going to go in for about 15 minutes. While your flatbread is in the oven, it's time to make your balsamic glaze. And we're just going to start with about 1 cup of balsamic vinegar. And we're going to boil this and let it reduce by half. So we're not going to put 1 cup of vinegar on the flatbread. So we'll just put our cup of balsamic vinegar in the saucepan over medium to medium-high heat. You do want this to come to a boil, and it's going to boil for 7 to 10 minutes until it's reduced by half. If your family is home while you're doing this, you're going to get a lot of, what is that smell? As it boils, it's going to give a pretty strong smell. Don't be alarmed. But you also want to keep an eye on it. Once it has reduced too far, it's too far, and there's no saving it. And so you just want it to reduce till it's starting to thicken to about a syrup consistency so that we can drizzle it over that flatbread. And while it is boiling, I'm going to cut up our basil that's also going to go on the top of the flatbread. I'm going to do this in a chiffonade. It's little ribbons. It's very pretty and impressive, but not difficult to do at all. So take probably 5 pieces of basil, 5 of your leaves, and stack them on top of each other. And then you're just going to take it and roll it up into a tight little roll. And then take your knife, cut off the stem side, and discard that. You can eat the stem. It's fine. It's just not going to look as pretty on top of your flatbread, so I'm going to get rid of it. And then I'm going to slice across my roll very thinly, as thin as I can, and it'll come out with little tiny ribbons. And this is called a chiffonade. And then you've got these little ribbons of basil that can go on the top of the flatbread. The strawberry flatbread is out of the oven, and so I am ready to top it with this balsamic reduction that I made. I'm just going to take my spoon and carefully drizzle some of this over the top of the flatbread, kind of in a diagonal motion if you want it to look really pretty. And then I'm going to put my basil chiffonade on the top as well, just kind of evenly over the top. using my fingers to kind of spread those ribbons out. And cut this into little strips for serving. I like to do it in little triangles so that you end up with little wedges, almost like pizza wedges. This makes a quick and easy light lunch for you and a couple of other people, and just wait for the compliments.
There are a lot of great horticulture activities this time of year. Be sure and consider some of these events in the weeks ahead. Next week, we'll be back here with another great show as we visit with some people who are preserving horticulture and its history in Oklahoma City and Tulsa. Join us again right here on Oklahoma Gardening. Best one yet. To find out more information about show topics as well as recipes, videos, articles, fact sheets, and other resources, including a directory of local extension offices, be sure to visit our website at oklahomagardening.okstate.edu. Join in on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can find this entire show and other recent shows as well as individual segments on our Oklahoma Gardening YouTube channel. Tune in to our OK Gardening Classics YouTube channel to watch segments from previous hosts. Oklahoma Gardening is produced by the Oklahoma Cooperative Extension Service as part of the Division of Agricultural Sciences and Natural Resources at Oklahoma State University. The Botanic Garden at OSU is home to our studio gardens, and we encourage you to come visit this beautiful Stillwater gem. We would like to thank our generous underwriter, the Oklahoma Department of Agriculture, Food, and Forestry. Additional support is also provided by Pond Pro Shop, Greenleaf Nursery and the Garden Debut Plants, the Tulsa Garden Center at Woodward Park, the Oklahoma Horticultural Society, Smart Pot, and the Tulsa Garden Club.